Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm very excited to share with you a grouping of products that I packed with me for a short trip last week. Without further hesitation, let's get cozy, grab a snack, grab a drink, and let's get into this video. To get started, I've already prepped my skin with sunscreen and I used the Round Labs Birch Juice Moisturizing Sunscreen. This is such a great, reliable sunscreen. I think I have officially found my new favorite day-to-day sunscreen. It's a chemical filter, so that means there's no white cast, but also it's a Korean chemical filter sunscreen. And I find for me, it doesn't sting my skin, it doesn't sting my eyes. It is just really, really lovely and it works extremely well under makeup. So if you're someone who doesn't want to be bothered with putting on a ton of layers and you just want to do a sunscreen, moisturizer, primer combo, this is beautiful. I did just order a few new sunscreens off Yes Styles, so I'm very curious to see how those compete with this one. The makeup bag I traveled with was this little Sailor Moon cosmetic case that one of my friends gifted me a few years ago for my birthday. I love it. It has a large open pocket for all of my products. I have a little pocket with some brush slots so I can put my brushes in here. We're gonna unpack and go, and I'm gonna apply the makeup and kind of share with you how everything works. On the very top of my bag, we have my hand cream. I did just use this. I like keeping my hands hydrated. I mean, working with makeup, being a very touchy person, I like my hands to be very, very soft. I packed with the Necessaire hand cream. This is a really, really nice one. This is my third tube of this, and I'm almost finished. I think they might have discontinued it or reformulated. I haven't seen it on the website recently, but if you can get your hands on, you want a really nice fragrance-free hand cream that absorbs really nicely. This is a beautiful hand cream. It's a little bit more expensive, but if you have very, very sensitive skin and you find a lot of things to feel greasy on the hands, I find this is really nice. This normally lives at my computer desk, moisturizing my hands between tasks. They don't get greasy feeling. I have my little Tweezerman scissor and spoolie set. Always travel with this. Sometimes you just need to tidy up hairs. I love this little Tweezerman kit. I keep it in the box. It came in that way. It's just together and I can put it in any of my travel bags. Really, really wonderful. And I also have with me some individual lashes. I was planning on wearing just one or two pieces of the individual lash for the day of the baby shower, but life got in the way and I was steaming clothes for my family, moving things back and forth, so I didn't have time to put lashes on. Everything turned out well. The makeup looked great in pictures and I got a lot of compliments on it in person. And I think the highlight of it all, I got my face on in like 10 minutes, which was unheard of for me because I normally take my time. Getting into actually applying makeup, I have my primer. I brought with me the Smashbox Photo Finish Primerizer. When I'm recording this video, it's just after 4 p.m. and I've had my sunscreen on for quite a while. I applied it first thing this morning and then I touched up around noon right after I had lunch. I want my foundation just to apply a little bit more smoothly, so applying a little bit of a moisturizing primer can help with that. Admittedly, when I was away, I only used the primer once, maybe twice. Most days I just relied on the sunscreen and things looked pretty great. Over the years, I've gone back and forth. My very first makeup job was for Estee Lauder. At that point in time, Estee Lauder didn't have a primer in their makeup selection, so we always relied on skincare. I loved using, I think it was called Daywear. It was like this Daywear sunscreen moisturizer. It started off white, rubbed it, had a little bit of a tint. It made me look really, really orange, but it was an extra layer of coverage and a little bit of color to my skin before I put on my double wear. It was a very orange complexions part of my life. Then moving forward, with MAC, there was a lot of primers. Then when I was a freelance makeup artist, I started using just moisturizers to prep, and now I'm kind of back and forth. Sometimes I like a primer, sometimes I just like my skincare and sunscreen to prime. It just really depends on the mood. Smashbox Photo Finish Primerizer, really great moisturizing primer. The next step in my routine is applying a setting spray. I packed with me this mini size, the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Setting Spray. I apply it a lot of times after I apply my primer to give my skin a little extra something before I move in to my complexion products. And I don't know what it is. I was beyond in love with the first bottle of this I purchased, and that was a mini size. Then I purchased a full size, and that was fun. Then I repurchased it, and it was okay. And then I got this mini size in like a Sephora favorites bag, and I don't know what it is. It's a great setting spray. It has a little bit of a soft floral scent. It just doesn't excite me like it used to, and I got really bored with it, and I was just getting ready one day, and I'm like, I don't like this setting spray. For the price point of Charlotte Tilbury, it just didn't excite me. So I was at Ulta. I saw this e.l.f. Stay All Day Blue Light Micro Setting Mist Long Lasting Wear. This is, of course, from e.l.f. One of my really good friends, Andy of Andy Does Stuff, she speaks so highly of this. I purchased it, and look how fine. Such a lightweight, inoffensive spray, and it works really well under makeup and over makeup. In my makeup bag, I carry this little clear plastic Muji cup, and that way any pencils or mascaras I can put in here, and that way when I'm at my destination, I can just stand it upright and grab, so that way pencils and things aren't floating all over my bag. For my complexion makeup, I packed the Givenchy Prisme Libre Skincare Glowing Foundation and the Prisme Libre Skincare Glowing Concealer. Both are in shade 1-C105. I've got some feelings. So for some reason, while I was away, I decided to switch up my routine because I've been feeling like my overall skin tone has been looking a lot more even. It's been a switch since the beginning of last year when I simplified my skincare routine. And I've just really made hydrating and being as gentle as possible. I have way fewer actives. I've been slowly adding them here and there, but focusing, especially when I travel, on basic moisturizing and protecting of my skin. My skin is sensitive. I have rosacea, so my barrier is prone to becoming compromised. But when my barriers are attacked and everything is just feeling happy and soothed, makeup goes on a lot easier, and I need a smaller amount because my overall complexion is a little bit more even. Most of last week, I started off with my concealer, and that's kind of been the season I'm in with my complexion makeup, is applying a little bit of concealer just where I want the most coverage. For my foundation brush, I brought with me this little travel Chanel brush that a sales associate gifted me when I was at Shoppers Drug Mart buying a few Chanel products. And it's just a really nice stippling brush. It is a little bit more dense than some of the brushes I go for. The tip of the brush feels quite round, and it's soft, but it also has a stiffness. So sometimes around the smaller parts of the face, it is a little bit harder to get things in the more tight areas of the face. We're gonna move on to the foundation. The Givenchy Prisme Libre foundation is a pretty thin foundation. It's almost like a hybrid of a lightweight foundation and a skin tint. I feel like you can build it slightly, but I don't really feel like it will build past a light medium coverage. I don't feel like this is something that if you have coverage needs, you are going to love it. This is more for someone who wants to add a thin veil of coverage all over, or if you just want to apply it a little bit and spread it out. It takes on a hydrated skin-like finish, so that way when you blend it out, you don't really see a seam where it starts and where it stops. And I just stipple, and the stippling is pretty rough with this. I don't feel like you need to be overly precise. I did blend it out with my fingers one day, but I don't know. I had a really bad case of polka dot pores, which is odd because going back, this is one of my favorites. I finished a bottle and I repurchased it, and then the repurchased bottle, I used it a few times, and then it just kind of sat around because there had been other things I purchased that kind of took precedent over this just because they were new, they were shiny, they were exciting. So this didn't get a lot of love for a little bit. Since first trying this, I found some foundations I really love, like the newer formulation of L'Oreal True Match or the #1 to Chanel foundation. This is still really pretty. It's a really nice, simple foundation product, but I don't know if I would repurchase it going forward. By no means is it bad. It isn't my favorite. I feel like there's things that create a similar effect on the skin that I just like a little bit better. Now I'm gonna say that, and in this little mirror up close, it's looking better than it did all of last week, so maybe I will have to retract my words, but after wearing it for 6 days straight, I just noticed things that I didn't love about it that I don't notice with other things, but also with my collection I have here for creating YouTube content, I tried different things. There's very, very few occasions where I will use the same products day to day to day to day, because normally I'm trying to diversify the things I use so that way I can give more well-rounded reviews on products. So here is the Givenchy Prisme Libre Skincare Glowing Foundation in C-1-C105 applied all over, and it looks okay. It's nice, it's easy, it's not an offensive foundation by any means. It's just not groundbreaking. I don't know why anytime I use the word groundbreaking, I always think about the scene with Miranda Priestley in Devil Wears Prada where she says florals for spring, groundbreaking. Now here is the other little Chanel brush the sales associate gave me, and I use this to go through and get in the tighter areas of the face. I forgot to bring a beauty sponge with me, and I wasn't gonna go buy one just to have it for the week because I've got my stockpile of them here. So I took this little Peripera brush I bought to powder my face, and I just used this without anything on it right after I applied my foundation to go through and just kind of sheer and spread things out a little bit more, and I was really happy with the finish. This came with the Peripera sculpting powder in a set that was on Olive Young, I think last year or 2 years ago maybe, and I just keep it in my travel bag. Now we are gonna move on to powder, and for powder I wasn't sure if I wanted to take a pressed powder, if I wanted to take a loose powder, and I ended up deciding to bring my Laura Geller Baked Balance-n-Brighten foundation in the shade Porcelain, using that little brush again. This is such a beautiful powder. It will give you a little bit of coverage when applied in this more generalized wash approach that I'm taking with it, but it does really well at setting the face, and it doesn't add weight to the face. It doesn't look like you've overly powdered the skin, and you don't really have to be precise with your application. You can just whisk it on and glaze over. It will give the skin a little bit more coverage, and it will give you just a nice, smooth, creamy finish. The next step I took most days is applying a little bit of highlight. I ended up packing with me a highlighter that is sadly discontinued, but I wish they would bring it back. Some of the best highlighters I feel like we've had in my makeup wearing lifetime have all been discontinued, and this one is it's a favorite. Laura Geller Baked Gelato highlight in the shade Charming Pink. I brought my Laura Geller angled blush brush. This came as part of the Fran Drescher Cancer Schmancer kit with a blush, and I got myself one of these and I got my mom one because the proceeds went to breast cancer, and as many of you know, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer 2 years ago. Thankfully, she beat her cancer battle, and now it's all in the reconstructive phase of her journey. This highlight is so beautiful. It gives a glow. You can build it up to make it more intense, or you can apply it as a sheer wash. It doesn't emphasize texture. It doesn't look heavy. And back in, I would say between, I think it was like 2013, 2016, the Laura Geller Baked Gelato highlighter in the shade Gilded Honey, I think is what it was the one that all the beauty content creators, or I think they just went by beauty gurus at that time, were all going by. And that was one of the first products that made me think, because I purchased it because everyone loved it. I felt like every content creator I loved was using it, and I purchased it Ulta, and it looked like a gold stripe on my face, and it lived in a drawer, and I eventually gave it to one of my friends. For an expanding shade, I brought the Peripera Pure Sunshine Cheeks in the shade 06 Morning Blush with the same Laura Geller blush brush. Applied this as my expanding shade, so this almost blurs the lines between a matte highlighter and a soft blush. This expanding blush trend is really popular in East Asian beauty, as this is a tool to brighten up the frontal portion of the cheek and create with it, it's an affirming effect. So you can add light, but it also helps to blur the lines where your cheek color starts and your skin tone starts. So most of us will brighten up under the eyes to some capacity. This just helps to brighten them up, and for me, I find it also helps to reduce the appearance of the under eye hollowing I have, where you can see the tendon moving. I normally always use 3 blushers. So I normally have an expanding shade, I have my primary cheek blush, and I have a shade I like to use, contouring shade. That's normally something a little bit deeper, and I almost go for something slightly warmer than my skin because instead of contouring my face, I like to use it to add some warmth to create like a flattering bronzed effect to my skin. So for that, I brought the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Blush in the shade Mood Exposure. This is a really beautiful, warm, mauvey blusher, and using that little brush I was using earlier to powder, I mix it in the palm of my hand and I apply this on the back of my cheek and wrap into the hairline, almost like I would apply my bronzer. All Hourglass ambient lighting blushes are blended ambient lighting powders that when they create this really lovely marbled effect. The shade Mood Exposure is blended with the Mood Light powder, which is a dusty pink powder, and it's really, really beautiful. The blusher I brought to be my central focus blush, or the primary color you'll see on my cheeks, is also from Hourglass Ambient Lighting Blusher in the shade Ethereal Glow. And this is a cool pink blusher blended with the ethereal light powder, so you can kind of see how the shade of powder is mixed with that cool pink. Using the Laura Geller brush, I just blended in, picked up some of that shade and work it here on the fronts of my cheek, and I'm blending together the expanding shade and that more contouring shade on the outer portion, and you'll see how that just kind of blends together the different tones of the face. You don't need 3 blushes, but I love blush. I find for me, using different tones of blush really helps to maximize my overall usage of my collection, and I just love using these different tones to create these different effects. And from the next step I want to take, I would ideally use a beauty sponge. Give the skin a good mist with any of your setting sprays. This will help to add a little bit of moisture to the skin and create a little bit of slip. I also brought with me a liquid blush, and this is the Say Dew blush, and this is a newer shade called Baby. I believe this was originally introduced over the holidays as in a set, and then just recently it became available as a single. So I take a little bit on the back of my hand and use my angled blush brush again, really working it into the brush because I've already got powder on, and we just applied 3 powder blushers. So I don't want to apply it directly on the face because it could break things up, but I want this really beautiful pop of pinky blush on the skin. And where this is a little bit more of a dewy finish and the base formula is quite hydrating, it's gonna bring a little bit of liveliness back to the skin. So just taking a little bit of a emollient dewy blush and applying it gently all over your cheek area after you've applied any powders or setting products, it can just make things look a little bit more lively. It's very similar to the effect that you get with the Patrick Ta blush duos, where you have the powder and then the cream. It just adds that like juicy glow back to the skin. And we're not rubbing the brush, we're taking our time and stippling to add a wash. And you will have a pop of color on the cheeks, don't worry, it's going to get blended down and softened. Before I do that, I like to apply my eye makeup, and that starts off with eyebrows. So I brought with me the Sephora Collection Retractable Brow Pencil Waterproof. This is the shade 1.25 Neutral Gray Brown. With my eyebrows, there is no real rhyme or reason to why I do things. Just my microblading is begun to fade. It just gives a little something back to the brows and also helps to cool them down so it blends in with the sides of my hair where I don't get anything highlighted. For eyeshadow, I brought the Wake Make Soft Blurring Eyeshadow Palette, and this is shade 04 Lavender Blurring. So here we have a really beautiful cool toned assortment ranging from more taupey shades to pinks and mauves and lavender. I just create a mix of colors, and I use this big fluffy Real Techniques brush. This is the RT308 medium shadow brush. And most days I start off with the matte purple, and I use this all over the eyelid because a purple can have a brightening effect on the skin, because purple is really great for neutralizing any yellowy tones. I find for me, sometimes especially here on the inner corner of my eyes, things can look a little sallow. So by applying that purple shade right over, it's going to neutralize it. And then I go in to these 2 neighboring shades that are a little bit more pink, and I just mix them together and run right over top of the purple, focusing mostly on the lid and blending up. And these shadows are so soft and they are so so similar to the overall tonal value of my skin that it doesn't need to be precise. You can kind of put them on with a brush and go about your day. To keep things very, very simple, I would almost, just depending on the day, mix something along the second to bottom row. There would be some days where I wanted to use the two matte pinks and add a little bit of that taupin, and then just work back and forth the socket of my eye. When you're first applying them, you might not notice that things look overly intense. These are just creating a soft, blurry veil on the eyes, and I will sometimes wrap under my eyes just to give the under eyes a little bit of something, because especially after you apply your blusher, and if you leave the under eye just with foundation or concealer and then you have your eyeshadow, you can have this white area under the eyes. So I like to neutralize that and just add a little bit of color harmony to it. And then moving on to the bottom row where we have our more vibrant shades. Most days I would mix together the purple, the matte pink, and the shimmery pink, and I like to run this just right over the eyelid and then just a little bit right under the center of the eye. If the under eye gets a little stark for your personal taste, go back to the e.l.f. Fluffy eye brush, look up, and blend back and forth. It will soften it down and just give this really beautiful, kind of sweet, childlike flush under the eyes. So that's something I've noticed. I've been around a lot of kids recently, it feels like, and I feel like a lot of times when you see a child blush and they smile, it carries up to the under eye, to the little fatty pad we have right under our eyes. It's really prominent when we're younger. When you smile, it just kind of goes up there, and I just like adding that look back because it's just very enlivening. It's not going to make you look 10 years younger. It just makes you look fresh and happy. And I've been on this wellness journey I've mentioned quite a bit on my channel over the last almost 2 years now, and focusing on making my happiness a priority has been so changing. I find I don't get in these lulls where I feel sad. I don't feel anxious as often. I mean, sometimes the little depression thoughts will creep in and anxiety thoughts will creep in, but working on my happiness, working on fostering and building up the parts of my life that work into my overall happiness, like relationships and taking care of my health, that has made such a difference. So now if I can use makeup in a way to emphasize the external look of what I'm feeling on the inside, I'm gonna go for it. It's so rewarding. Moving on to the top row where we have some of the shimmers, I normally start off with this pearl pink and I run that right over my lid. These shimmers are so beautiful. They're so fine. And it's really fascinating because this palette is quite subtle. I'm using the pinkish white on the top. And even though they're so subtle, the application is very slap and dash. We're literally using big brushes and our fingers to kind of create this really beautiful wash all over the eyes. It garners a lot of compliments. Now I'm going to use the really shimmery shade and just tap right over the ball of my eye using my finger to press and pat. And that's pretty much it. It's so simple, and even though we used a lot of shades, we used almost all the shades in the palette, it doesn't feel overly complicated. It's not overly technical. You can mix and match the shades to however your heart is content, and you just get this really beautiful fresh effect. They have so many different tonal palettes to choose from in the Wake Make Soft Blurring palette. So if you want to get one, there's a shade selection that will work really well for you. Only downside is since it is K-Beauty, some of the shades run a little bit more on the pastel side. So if you do have a deeper skin tone, that might limit your selection a little bit more. For the one I have here, the 04 Soft Lavender, 04 Lavender Blurring. If your skin tone is much deeper than light medium, maybe even into medium, this might pull a little ashy on you. But if you're more of the fair complexion like I am, it will give you a really pretty soft purple pink haze to the eye area. I like to go one step further and add a little bit more blur to connect the under eye and the cheek. And for that, I've been using this Westman Atelier Vital Skin Powder. My biggest complaint with this is I do not think this is worth the money. And it is really hard to open. I need some free edge to my nails because I have to work the tip of my nail between the top and the base of the little clam compact and then work it open. I feel like I'm gonna break a nail one day. This is the shade Bubble, or is it, Pink Bubble, and I'm using the e.l.f. Fluffy Eye Blender. It's an okay powder. It's pretty. It is a soft pink powder. I can 100% say I would not repurchase it, and that's not because it's bad. It's just expensive for what it is. And then I always just take my finger with a tiny bit more powder and just pat over, because I feel like that helps to melt it into the skin a little bit more. And then we can go through and buff the complexion, and that is where I use the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Powder in Ethereal Light, and this just softens all of the edges, softens down the blush. Finished off eyes, we've got mascara. While I was away, one of the products I purchased was the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer Mascara. A butter bronzer mascara. The shade is called Bronze. I was like, oh, I want a bronze mascara, because brown mascara is having a moment. So I was really curious to try this. I knew I wasn't gonna be able to wear it by itself because it's just a regular formula, and I have issues with non-waterproof or non-tubing mascaras. They tend to smudge and transfer around my eyes. So this one comes with a large bristle brush, which I struggle with because I have smaller eyes, and big brushes like this I can make a mess with very easily. This one I find I need to angle my mirror down a little bit more and then pull through. I can't do too much back and forth wiggling like I normally like to do, because it will get all over my eyelids and then under my eyes. And I think the thing that gets me the most with this mascara is it smells just like the butter bronzer, and I can't use this day to day, because if I use this multiple days in a row, it does start to irritate my eyes. So why do we need a coconut scent in our mascara? I would advise against it, but I do understand that as far as the butter bronzing collection, it's a scent that's carried out through their products. So consistent with the brand story and the story of the collection, but for the eye area, I prefer without. Over top that mascara, I carried on with the Tower 28 mascara. This is the shade Drift, which is also brown. This is a wash off formula. So applying it on top of a standard mascara, it just makes the formula last a little bit longer, gives it a little bit extra length, and it prevents it from smudging all around my eyes. And worn alone, the Tower 28 mascara is just absolutely beautiful. This is a new favorite, and it stays on really well, and it does really well for holding a curl. A lot of these wash off or tubing forms can be quite heavy on the eyes and weigh down the lashes. I do not find the Tower 28 mascara does that. I brought my little mini of the Benefit 24-Hour Brow Setter just to hold my eyebrows in place. I brought two lip pencils with me, one slightly deeper, one slightly lighter. So the deeper shade I brought for lip contouring is the RMS Beauty Go Nude Lip Pencil in the shade Morning Dew. This is a little bit deeper, a little bit warmer than my natural lip color, so I kind of fill in the outer corners. I also brought with me the Pat McGrath Permagel Lip Pencil in the shade Bare Rose. I brought this with me because it's a shade I remember really enjoying, and it's getting quite low. So now it's this game of, can I finish this up pretty soon? And it's a nice lip pencil. It stays on really well. The color is really pretty. For the price point, there's lip pencils I like better. The lipstick I brought was the Bobbi Brown Luxe Lip Color in the shade Pink Cloud. Staying true to kind of my personal style, I always went through and smudged out the lip color. And then some days I felt like this color wasn't just what I was wanting. Sometimes I felt like it was a little stark. I wanted something a little bit more subdued. So that's when I used a product I purchased at Target. This is the NYX Fat Lip Oil Slick Click Shiny Lip Balm. And I purchased the shade 02 Cloud. So you have to click it up and then it just wipes right on. The only thing I don't like about this formula is it gets quite messy. So I find I always need to wipe it off after I use it, especially if I have an existing lip pencil, lipstick, anything like that on. That's so pretty. It's been like 2 hours since I finished the makeup. I had to run out and run an errand that I totally forgot about. So here we are, and the lip color has completely worn off. So again, the lip color I had on was the NYX Fat Oil Slick Click Shiny Lip Balm in the shade 02 Clout. So we've already seen how it looked with the lip pencil and over lipstick. So let's see how it looks on just bare lips. So worn alone, Clout is just this odd milky pink that if you're not careful and you don't take the time to kind of blot the perimeter of your lip, I find it can give this weird gathered pulled effect around the lips. And then another thing that I'm noticing, that's the same thing I noticed all last week I was away, the Givenchy foundation wants to settle and just look really unflattering kind of from like the nasolabial lines across the top lip. I mean, I do have like added texture to this area just from like shaving and things like that. It just doesn't look good as I remember it looking. And the mascara, even with the Tower 28 on top, the Physicians Formula, if I don't get the Tower 28 all the way down to the root of the lash, then things like the smudging can happen, and it's not bad overall. It's not bad at all. The Tower 28 definitely saves the mascara. The Physicians Formula, I'm glad I tried it, but like I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't repurchase it, and the smell is quite strong. Rounding out the week, I had played with a few different fragrances. I brought a few with me, and one that I brought with me was one that I've had in my collection pretty much since it released, and I haven't really given it a lot of love, and this is from Dolce & Gabbana. This is called Devotion, and I purchased the 50 ml size. Devotion has a really beautiful bottle with this beautiful gold Dolce & Gabbana heart, and the scent is so wonderful. I already have a little bit on, but just for sake of reviewing real quickly, it smells so happy. My husband says it makes me smell like marshmallows, and my family, when I wore this last week, said it makes me smell like lemon bars, which marshmallows or lemon bars, I love all the above. On the back of the Devotion box, it says candied citrus, orange blossom, and vanilla. In my mind, when I put this all together, the first thing that comes to mind is a lemon meringue pie. Lemon meringue, you've got the lemon, which is going to give you that citrusy zing to the fragrance. Orange blossom is kind of a lightweight, bubblegummy, marshmallowy scent that I really, really love. And if I'm thinking in terms of like a lemon meringue, I think of the orange blossom almost acting like the fluffy meringue, topping the lemon custard in the middle. And then in the crust, you normally have a really nice flaky crust. Sometimes in crust, you'll add a little bit of like a vanilla extract, which for me is where the vanilla comes in. So, and to me, this scent feels very nostalgic in a way. Now, a lot of you know that I've seen my other fragrance content. I always relate fragrances with memories, and when I was a little kid, still in elementary school, so mid to late 90s, every Sunday after our church service, there would be these gatherings where people would bring different food, and you would just have a fellowship meal after church service. And this one lady would always bring in a lemon meringue pie, and it kind of made lemon meringue pie like my favorite dessert. I mean, even now, I love lemon meringue pie, and this just smells so fresh, so lovely, and it gets so many compliments. This is so good. And if you have Bath & Body Works iced lemon pound cake, this layers extremely well with it. That came out last year, but I think it's supposed to be coming out this spring again, so I'm so excited to get the rest of the collection. Now that fragrance is out of the way, that is going to conclude today's video. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I hope you enjoyed kind of seeing the look I put together with the products I packed with me for last week, and hearing some little reviews as well as some mentions of some of the products I picked up last week. If you have any questions or you want to share with me some of your favorite products you've been using recently, leave me a comment and we can continue the discussion there. Until we see each other again, I hope you're taking care of yourself wherever it is you are in the world, and I will see you later. Bye, y'all.